We are going to make a pumpkin using some drawing skills as well as color mixing with paint. So we are going to start by just drawing the basic shape of our pumpkin. I'm going to do an oval in the middle of my paper. Okay, I'm using a black crayon. If you need to use pencil first and then you can go over it in black crayon, you could do that if you feel more comfortable. And then I'm going to go to the top of that oval and slightly to the side to start the next section of my pumpkin. They're sort of like in, individual sections. You can do it, treat it like that. So I'm going to come from the side, I'm going to go around, and then I'm going to connect back to that original oval. Okay, I'm going to do the same on the other side. You can sort of see it starting to come together now. And then I'm going to do it one more time on each side. So I'm going to go to the side. I'm going to come around and connect back at the bottom. I'm going to come to the top here, come around, and connect back at the bottom. Okay, so, pumpkins are organic shapes. They can, be shorter and rounder, taller and thinner. There are so many different ones, so you don't have to worry if it doesn't look exactly like the one I'm making. They vary in size and shape. So now I'm going to go ahead and add a stem to the pumpkin. So I'm going to come up and do a slightly curved line. And then I'm going to repeat that line over here. And then I can connect to create that stem. The stem can be more curving, more straight, longer, shorter. Again, there's not really a right or wrong. And then we can add the vines later with paint. But if you're using a pencil and you feel more comfortable kind of drawing them in, you could. Now, before we move on to paint, I want to kind of add a little bit of color to the background. I'm going to use some cool colors since I know my pumpkin is going to be those warm yellows, reds, oranges. So I'm going to use some cool colors. I have a blue crayon and a purple crayon that do not have the wrapper on it. And I'm going to do more of a crayon rubbing, and I'm going to use the side of my crayon to put that into the picture. Now, if you have something like a texture plate or some surface that's texturized, you could do that so that that texture comes through. But definitely, kind of filling the space. It's okay if a little gets on the pumpkin since we are going to be painting over that. And now I'm going to use the purple to go on top as well. So maybe you want to use greens or, some different blues, some different cool colors to kind of put into that background to contrast the warm colors of our pumpkin. If you have brown paint, you can wait and add that once you've painted your pumpkin. If not, you can take a brown crayon and put in that color on that stem. Now to do the color mixing, I have some red and yellow on a plate. So I like seeing a little bit of variety in my pumpkin as far as the shades of orange. This is a finished one that's kind of large, but I think you can see it. And you can see a little bit of the yellow coming through. Some areas are a little bit darker, some are a little bit brighter. So we're gonna kind of play around with that as we mix. I'm gonna make a new spot for my orange to create the color orange, but I'm still gonna leave a little bit of yellow and red in case I want to darken areas or add, you know, a little bit of a lighter color to some spots. So that seems like a pretty good orange. I could have gone a little darker if I wanted. It's really just a personal choice. So now I can pull from any three of those spots, but I'm gonna start painting into my pumpkin with my mixed color. So I started with the yellow because it's the lighter color when I mixed, and adding just a little bit of red. We always like to start with our lighter color and then add the darker color. And now that I have that color on there, I can start putting this in. So I could leave it just like this with this nice shade of orange. Mine's kind of like yellowy orange. Or I can actually dip in to my red while this is still wet and mix in some areas that are going to be darker and lighter. So I'm just going to kind of take my red while it's on there, put that into some of these spots, and then I'm not going to leave it that bright. I'm going to get a little bit of yellow and kind of mix that in there so I can see it sort of becoming different. I can see those different shades on my paper. Okay, I'm going to go to my next section. And I'm just filling this in. And again, I might go a little bit darker on the outside. And I need a little bit of water to help this spread. I could go a little bit brighter in the middle. And then I can just keep on going here. If your paint's giving you a hard time and not wanting to spread, you can add a little bit of water and make sure that it's still moving on the paper. And I don't want to leave it bright red, but I do like having a little variety in there so I can get my yellow and go over it like that, and I can do the same over here. So some of the color we mixed on our plate, and some we actually mixed some on our paper as we were working. The very last thing we can do is we can add those vines. So I'm gonna give myself a little bit of green paint. I'm gonna make sure my brush is nice and clean. Not too much water on it. I'll dip into my green, and now I can add those like kind of swirling, twirling vines. And I can just come off the paper, the pumpkin, and if it gets a little too thin of paint, I can add more. And let's see, I can even have one coming onto my pumpkin. Now I gotta be careful because my paint is still wet. And I could end it right there.